My name is Jerome Ferry. My cameraman is Alan Eggers. We're doing a video interview with Greco, a lifelong musician, band leader, and a WMT radio and television personality in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Leo, tell us what year you were born in and where you were born in.
I was born in 1921 in Owine, Iowa.
What was your folks' name?
Dominic was my dad, Mary was my mother.
Dominic,
Italian.
Italian?
Yeah.
Were
They both came from Italy.
They did?
But I was born here in this country.
They were immigrants?
Yeah,
and
immigrants.
Did they still talk a lot of Italian around home?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
They talked a lot of Italian. Of course, they could speak English too.
Mm-hmm.
But they talked a lot of Italian.
Did you learn the Italian language as a child?
Yes, I did. I could speak Italian before I could speak English.
Can you really?
But then later on, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I lost it.
Yeah. So, what was your dad's occupation in Owine?
He was a Boilermaker helper at the Great Western Railroad in Owine.
This was quite a large...
It's quite back in then.
Large complex.
Railroad days, you bet it was really a large complex.
And your mom was a stay-at-home mother?
You bet.
Yeah.
She worked at home, like all mothers do. Then, back in those days, actually.
Yeah. But, growing up in Owine, what did you have to do as a kid? Did you have cricks to mess around in, or did you like out the outdoors? Or?
Dad was from the old school. He had a big garden and he kept his kids busy. And I mean, he kept us busy. And at the age of 10, he put an accordion in my hands and said, play. Back in those days, he didn't say, I don't want to play. He was, okay, but I happen to like it. It was fun. I enjoyed doing it. So.
Did I ask you, did you have any brothers and sisters? Or were you?
I had 3 brothers that are still alive.
Mm-hmm.
I had 3 sisters. 2 of them passed away. One, my sister Rose, lives outside of Waterloo.
What's your brother's names?
My brother's Pete is in Maynard. He farms out there. Well, he's a retired farmer. John is retired from John Deere. He's in Owine. And brother Lou is in Cedar Falls.
Did your folks, did they have longevity? Did they live to be quite?
No. Mom died at the age of 58. Dad died at the age of 76.
So any spare time, especially in the summertime, was probably spent out in the garden.
Yes. Out in the garden getting railroad ties because my dad used to have a Dutch oven that he baked bread in.
And you used railroad ties?
That's right.
Before they were creosoted, I hope.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
So, and did you went to school, grade school?
Went to school. Well, actually, I went to Parkside grade school. Then in the 3rd grade, I moved over to Sacred Heart. Mm-hmm. Then graduated from Sacred Heart High School in 39.
Yeah. And you had nuns for teachers?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm. Back in those days, they were strictly nuns.
Yeah. And where did you go to high school? What school?
Sacred Heart High School.
Sacred Heart High School.
Right there in Owine. Mm-hmm.
That's where you graduated from. And how old were you?
I was 17 when I graduated.
17 when you graduated.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us about your first getting into the music business. Your dad thought you ought to play a musical instrument. Why did he pick an accordion?
Well, because Al and Ernie Girardi were from Cedar Rapids. They used to be at Ginsburg's jewelry store, and they also had the accordion school over there. And they came to Owine and started giving lessons and talked my dad into buying an accordion and say, look, why don't we get your son to give him lessons? And Dad said, fine.
An accordion-type instrument is quite popular in Italy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. Yeah. Not like it was back in the old days,
yeah.
But you still have some good accordion players,
mm-hmm.
especially in your polka field mostly anymore.
How many other children were in the class that were taking musical instruction?
In Owine, there were 7 of us.
7, and mm-hmm. They would come from Cedar Rapids to teach you.
Yeah.
What, on a weekly basis?
Yeah, every week. Yeah. Al Girardi would come up, and then when Al quit, his brother Ernie started giving us lessons.
And did you? Did a lot of them flunk out?
Well, they just quit playing. They didn't really, it wasn't really their main interest. Yeah. But I liked it, and I kept playing, kept along with it. So that's the way it was.
Did they ever tell you that you had musical talent, your instructors, or did they ever mention the fact, or they just...
No, they just gave lessons.
They just gave lessons.
And I had to go out on my own to find a job.
This was the Depression. Did that hurt your dad?
With the garden and everything, we didn't even feel the effects of it. Of course, we didn't have change of clothes like they have nowadays, and didn't have all of the food that they have nowadays. But we lived all right. We were comfortable.
And the railroad was probably pretty stable as far as employment was concerned.
Yeah, it was. They weren't making a lot of money, but Dad made enough to keep us all fed and everything. Clothed.
How many years did he end up working for the railroad?
Well, actually, he started at the age of 15, and I think about the age of 65, he retired.
Did he ever receive a pass, a lifetime or a railroad pass, that where he could take his family on?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Never did.
No. See, I left home when I was 17.
Okay.
And by that time, let's see, Dad was still working on the railroad.
Yeah. Did you ever did your folks ever do any traveling or take any vacations
No.
with your kids? Never.
Furthest they ever came to was Cedar Rapids. Dad was going to stay 3 or 4 days with us, and after the first day, he says, Leo, can I go home? He missed his garden. He missed being in his own environment. Oh,
You were in high school, Leo. When you were in high school, Leo, were you interested in sports?
no, not really. I, like Dad said, you got to practice every day, so that took my interest off of sports. So. And I was too, I play around in the gym, but I was too slow to be a good basketball player. Of course, with my hands, Dad wouldn't let me play football, so that was that.
He was very serious about you becoming a musician, wasn't he?
He was very serious.
Did you ever have hold any hard feelings against him for that, or
No.
you didn't feel
No.
you were missing out on anything growing
No,
up?
not really.
That's good. So, when was your first job, Leo?
Well, back in 1935, there was an outfit called Tom Boland's Cowboys. Not to be confused with Tom Owen's Cowboys.
Boland.
Boland. In Owine, Iowa. That's where I got my first job. Played a few dance jobs with him, and then entertained around town in different clubs, And of course, I used to carry the accordion, which is a mile from school. I'd carry that to school, and we'd have band practice. Only accordion player in the band, of course.
Good stuff.
So when you got a job with Tom Boland, what did he pay you? Did he pay you by the hour, or did he pay you by the dance job, or?
I think we got paid $2, $3, $4, $5 at the most, and back in those days there wasn't much money around, but it was fun, and we didn't play all that much, just a few jobs,
What were they? Wedding dances or church occasions or?
Wedding dances.
Wedding dances.
And barn dances.
Did Owine have a dance?
They had a ballroom, but we didn't play the ballroom.
Yeah. What was the name of the ballroom?
That was a Coliseum ballroom.
Okay.
I believe now it's a furniture store.
So, when did you come to the big city?
In 1939, I graduated on a Friday, and then after the Girardis, Mrs. Sloan started giving me accordion lessons. And her husband says, well, why don't you come and stay with us for a week or two, get your feet on the ground, and maybe move over to the YMCA. So I thought that was pretty nice of him. So I did. That's exactly what I did. Can you cut that for a second?
So, they thought you needed advanced training in...
No, they just thought that I should have some place to stay while I looked for a job.
Oh, okay.
So I did, and I found 3 jobs right away. I played in a beer tavern at night, solo accordion, and then I got a job moving pianos for Hillburner Music Company, and then I'd peddle papers in the daytime. The type that you throw in, what do you call those? Like the
penny saver?
Like the penny saver, yeah. And that's what I did. Between the 3 jobs, I was busy all the time.
You moved pianos?
Yeah, I moved pianos.
You didn't worry about just putting you out of commission?
No, not really. I was in pretty good shape at the age of 17, 18.
So where was this tavern located that you played in?
It was on First Street. You know where the big parking lot is across the street from Smoothie Cost?
Mm-hmm.
Right across the street from there.
You don't recall the name of the tavern?
I really don't.
I had asked somebody at the History Center, and one of the historians said to ask him if it was the... I thought he said Sunrise, but it wasn't.
It wasn't the Fox Head, because the
Fox
Fox Head,
he asked me
that
to
was
ask.
one block north of there.
Yeah.
And I was in the next block.
So
Actually, the Fox Head was 2 blocks north of there. Because Cubius Hardware used to be in that block, from 2nd Avenue to 3rd Avenue.
Yeah.
And then the hotel, in fact, the hotel was right there around the corner.
Montrose?
No, not the Montrose. It was the, I can't think of it right at this moment.
I want to say Grand. But
No, the Grand was on 1st Avenue. It's Magnus.
Magnus, okay.
The Magnus, I think it was, I could be wrong on that though.
This tavern, how did they find out about you?
Well, they didn't. I just went in different taverns and asked them if they needed any music, and this one happened to say, "Yeah, we can use you." You know.
So how long did you play?
Oh, I was there actually a couple of months, and Jack Nye, who was with Don Sievert's Texans, came in, and he says, "Hey, we're looking for an accordion player." I said, "That's funny. I'm looking for a job." So he says, "Great." He says, "We're going to be working Saturday nights, you know, such and such a place." So, and I joined Don Sievert's Texans and quit playing in the taverns. But I was played with Sievert's Texans, and I still delivered those papers and still worked in the Hillburners Music Company in the daytime. Then I had another job, Tip Top Distributing, because that way I kept busy 5 days a week, and then dancing. We were only doing it 1, 2, 3 nights a week at that time.
Mm-hmm. Did you try to get home to Owine?
Oh, we got home every night.
Once a week. And then,
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned in the pre-interview about a Uncle Elmer.
Yeah, Uncle Elmer. Well, Don Sievert decided to get out of the business. He sold the band to Uncle Elmer. So Uncle Elmer took over, and we then were called Uncle Elmer and his Daffy Doodlers. And we dressed up with comic hats and stuff, and it continued as as Uncle Elmer and his Daffy Doodlers instead of the Don Sievert and his Texans.
What was Elmer's last name? You remember?
Yeah, Frank Coburn. Yeah, I used to be with WMT back in the old days, on the air with Bob Leifers and the rest of those gentlemen.
And then, did you start to go big time before the war?
Well, no, actually, what happened there, the band wasn't received that well around here because we weren't playing the kind of music they really liked.
What were you playing?
We were playing mostly pop instead of country music. Tom Owens Cowboys was the big draw back in those days because they played what the public wanted to hear.
Yeah.
But Ralph Davison, our bass player's aunt, called and says, "They're looking for a band at Ernie's West End Coffee Shop in Des Moines. How would you guys like to audition?" Well, we did. And there we packed them in 6 nights a week. The place was full every night. And I was there for about a year, and then the war broke out, and I decided a little later on that I wanted to go into the Navy.
Yeah. Did you, when you were in Des Moines, did you play outside of Des Moines, or?
No, we just played the one spot, Ernie's West End Coffee Shop.
So in 1941, when the war broke out, when Pearl Harbor.
I was in Des Moines at that time.
You were in Des Moines. Did you enlist, or did you?
I enlisted in the Navy, but that was in 42. See, the war broke out December 1, 1941, and I enlisted in the Navy in 1942, in September.
So where did you end up? Did you end up on a ship, or?
Yeah, well, first I went to boot camp in San Diego, and from there sent us back to Chicago and went to signal school there. And then I stayed as an instructor for a few months, and then I didn't like the shore duty. So I said to the chief, I said, they told me that the third class rate, instructors could have any ship they wanted. So I said to the chief, I'd like to get aboard a ship. He says, "I think you're crazy. Most guys would give their left arm to be have this kind of duty you got, and you want to go aboard a ship." "Yeah, I don't feel like I'm doing it." He says, "You're teaching these kids how to," here, I'm a kid myself, and I'm teaching these kids how to be good signalmen. He says, "You're good at what you're doing." I said, "Yeah, but I really don't care for it." So
your heart wasn't in it.
He said, "Okay." He said, "Go ahead and tell me what kind of ship you want." I said, "What choices have I got?" "Well, you can battle any kind, aircraft carrier, battleship, cruiser, tin can." I said, "Do you have to stand in ceremony on them, inspections and all that?" He says, "The big ships you do, but," he says, "the tin cans you don't." That time I didn't know what a tin can was. And I said, "What's a tin can?" He said, "That's a destroyer. They call it the workhorse of the Navy and call it the Dungaree Navy." I said, "That's for me." So they gave me my ship. And the USS Luce is where I ended up at.
In what theater was it? In the Pacific or the Atlantic, or?
We went in commission on the Atlantic side, and then we crossed over the Panama Canal, went on the Pacific side, and then we were in the Illusions for 9 months. Then we came back down to Pearl Harbor, and from there we went back into the Philippines. On the first battle we got in was the Philippine Islands. Then from the Philippines we went to Okinawa, and Okinawa is where we got sunk.
Did you, after your first battle, did you feel maybe you didn't make the right choices?
Never thought about it that time, because we were thinking about, they forced it on us. We didn't ask for it, It's just like it is nowadays. We didn't ask for this, So I just figured I was doing my patriotic duty, like everybody did at that time,
Did you was you able to take your accordion with you?
Yes, I did. I took it with me, and of course when I came back from the from the Aleutian Islands, I brought it back home, so it didn't go down on the ship with me.
I imagine you were quite popular amongst the other guys, that being able to play a musical instrument like that.
my memory's not that good.
What was the first action you saw, Leo?
Well, actually, when we were in the Aleutian Islands, we made the first runs on the Japanese territory, the Paramushiro Islands, and we had 9 destroyers and 3 cruisers, and we made a run on it, and that was our first. What am I trying to say? My first. I guess it was our first target. This Paramushiro Island wasn't. We had oil places that we hit and things, and we made a terrific run. And the thing about it, from the Aleutian Islands, we had to go underneath fog all the way, and we were lucky. We got all the way over there, and it was very successful because we lobbed the shells over there, you could see where we were hitting and everything, and the sky just lit up, and of course we got right out of there. That was the only time we got there, though, because a couple of other times we started out, got about halfway there, and then the clouds lifted, and the reconnaissance plane saw us, so we had to turn around and go back.
What was your Pacific duty on the ship?
I was a signalman.
And how many battles were you in before you got sunk, and how did you get sunk?
Well, we were in the Philippines. I think we were in 2 or 3, and then the Okinawa one. So actually, all the time, I think we got 4 stars on our, medals that I can remember. I should have boned up a little bit better on it, But anyway, then the last one, of course, was the Okinawa, and that's where we got sunk. We were there 34 days before we got it. See, the invasion was on 1st of April, and then May 4th is when we got sunk. And I was one of the lucky guys. I didn't get a scratch.
And how did this ship get sunk?
Suicide planes. And one of them peeled off and came right. There was 25 when it started out, but in the meantime, we had called into the beach.
Go ahead.
Actually, we called into the beach, and then they'd come out and get the planes before they got there. We were 34 days before finally these 25 came in low on the water, and before our radar caught them, they were on top of us, and one of them just peeled off and came over and just missed us. I was up on the bridge, and I thought, man, I've got it for sure, but he just missed us. But his bombs, they had 2 bombs on the wings, killed most of the guys on the starboard side. And then the other 2 that peeled off, got one hit in the middle and one hit aft, and midships, and one hit aft. And wasn't 5 minutes later, and the boat the ship went right over. Don't call it a boat. Ship went right over on its side, and I slid off at the bottom. But I was one of the lucky ones. The only thing that that affected me is that when I hit the water, I must have hit at an angle because I jammed my back, my spine. But when I went back to the States in about 3 or 4 months, the chiropractor had that straightened out.
Yeah. What year was this?
This is May 4th, 1945.
Okay, I was thinking the Japanese were using this as a last resort to use pilots to human bombs.
That was because, see, the war ended in August. And actually, the planes that came at us were Zeros. When ours came out, it didn't take long for them to knock the rest just out. They were just didn't have the quality of material that we had, ships that we had.
How many crew members did you have on your ship?
We had 335.
And how many did you lose?
We lost 150, and about 80 to 100 were really hurt, and then I didn't get a scratch.
How long were you in the water before you were
Not
arrested?
too long. There was LSTs and LCIs around us to pick us up. An hour or 2 at the most.
I know you were raised as a Catholic. Did you find yourself doing a lot of praying, or didn't it enter a young person's mind back then?
It enters your mind. Especially when you see a plane coming at you, and you, Lord, I'm in your hands. What else can you do,
Did you carry a St. Christopher's medal? Or?
I did not. I didn't carry a medal with me. But I prayed a lot.
So, did I ask you how many people had lost their lives?
150.
150. Did they ever build another ship and rename it
Yes, they had. There's a newer Lusat. I can't tell you the number, but there is a newer Lusat.
Why don't you hold this picture up when you were in the Navy there, Leo? Kind of pretty much straight up there. How's that, Alan?
I got it. Go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah. This picture would have been taken in, it says Owine, 1945. Is that when it was?
That's probably it. Mhm.
And
My
your
kids did this for me.
your rate and rank?
I was a signalman first class. And yeah,
Very
it's
nice.
quite the thing. The kids gave that to me as a present.
So, was that pretty much the end of your duty? When
Well,
your ship got sunk?
When the ship got sunk, I came back to the States, and they sent me to Bayonne, New Jersey. And, well, first I had a 30-day leave. Then I went to Bayonne, New Jersey. And the 30-day leave, my wife and I went out about every night. She wasn't my wife then. And so I went back to the base after my 30 days, and a week or two later I said to the captain, I said, hey, I'd like to go home and get married. He says, you just had 30 days. And I said, well, have you ever been in love? He says, oh, go home. He says, so he gave me another week off, and I came home and married my wife. We've been married for 56 years.
And her name was?
Louise.
Louise. Mm-hmm. And what town or city was she from?
She was from Orne, 10 miles west of Owine.
Had you ever known her?
Yes, we stood up for my uncle and her friend, she's now my aunt, at their wedding, and that's where we met.
Before you went to the service?
Oh, yeah. 4 years later is when we got together. Well, actually 2 years later, because when I came back home from the Illusion Islands on leave, we had 3 days together, and then I went back, and I was aboard ship for 2 years, and we rode just all the time to each other.
So you got married, so where did you set up housekeeping then?
Well, actually, we were in Bayonne. We went back to Bayonne, New Jersey, then she went with me. And then when I found out I was coming home, she came home, and then we were going to live with my dad we did live with my dad for, can you cut that? Down here, of course, that's the USS Luce. And that's when we were in the Illusion Islands. I went to the beach to see a priest friend of mine, and he had left the day before we got there. And of course, this is when we shot our first Japanese plane down. That's me, of course, with the hair you see there. And this is my first class rate, and these are the different medals we got, and the stars I was telling you about up here on top. And of course, the good conduct medal, and all of that goes with it. There's my discharge paper. And that's it. And that's me back here again with more hair when I got out of the service. Well, I was still in the service, but just before I got out.
Mm-hmm.
Very
I
nice.
can understand why Louise would look twice. You were kind of a handsome man. You were a handsome
Oh, yeah, we had the same color hair when we got married, and we still got the same color hair now.
So, when did you come back to Cedar Rapids?
We came back then from Bayonne, New Jersey in the first part of October. And I was all set to go to college, got everything. We went to Ames, my wife and I. In fact, we even had a trailer rented, and we were going to get her a job, and then I was going to go to school. And Tom Owens came along in December and called me up. I was living in Owine with the folks, and he called me up and said, Leo, I'm looking for an accordion player. I said, Tom, I can't do it. I said, because I promised my wife that that's no life for a married man, you know. Well, I said, why don't you bring Louise down? They were playing the Coliseum Ballroom that night. And he said, why don't you bring Louise down? We'll talk about it. So Louise and I went down, and we got to, shooting the breeze with him. And he said, I understand how Louise feels, but, he said, we pay good money. And I said, no, I said, still can't do it, Tom. I said, that is good money for this day and age. And my wife says, honey, if that's really what you want to do, I won't hold you to that promise. So that's how my career started, thanks to my wife. I would never got in the music business if she'd have kept me to my promise.
Can you give us a ballpark figure as to what he offered you? That
100 and a quarter a week.
100 and a quarter a week.
With a privilege of 10%.
And what was the going wage for average laborer?
Oh, about then $50-$60 a week was good money. So 100 and a quarter. And then I think first year, I think we made over $10,000 with them.
What were you going to do? Take advantage of your GI Bill by going back to college?
Yes.
What did you have in mind?
Well, I was going to be an engineer. Which is a big joke. I didn't realize, as far as simple arithmetic is concerned, that was fine. But when to be an engineer, you got to be great in algebra and the higher math. And believe me, I'd have had to change my plans. Because it's just like when in the Navy, I wanted to be a yeoman and a corpsman and something else. And my aptitude showed that I wouldn't be good for any of them. So I said, well, if my aptitude is that good, what could I be good at? And they said, well, you could be a good radioman, a good signalman, and there was one other thing. And I said, what would I be the best at? They said, you'd be the best at being a signalman. You'd be an excellent signalman. Okay, so I went to the school at the University of Chicago, and I thought, these guys got to be crazy. Space, and all this, W. But once I got into it, it was just like rolled off my back. It was really simple. And I understood it, and it was just, and they were right. Out of 1,000 people, I was one of the top 5 that stayed as an instructor. So they knew what they were talking about. But that's the only thing I was good at in my life.
A signalman on the ship, what would their duties been?
We use the lights. You've seen the flashing lights. We use that. Then we use the hoist up the flags. And the flags that you'd hoist up, say you did Baker, Dog, Love, Mike. Now those they mean nothing to you. They're code. But they'd set up one set and then another set, another set. And when you got through, you'd turn them to the officer of the day, and he'd go down and decipher them, and then give them to the captain. So tell them what the message is. And then we also did hand signals, You've seen a semaphore, haven't you? Like A, B, C, D, E. See, don't forget it. It still stays with you. Not as good as I used to be, but it still stays with you.
How many band members did Tom Owens have at that time?
6 of us.
6 of you?
And then Tom was the leader.
Mm-hmm. And were you covering a pretty big area of the state at that time, or pretty much?
Yeah, actually, we played Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin mostly with Tom.
Mm-hmm. And what type of music did Tom Owens?
Strictly cowboy.
Strictly cowboy music.
They strictly cowboy music.
And that was the popular music.
Oh, they were the most popular band in the area. Mm-hmm. They at one time, I wasn't with them. That was before, when I was in the Navy. Tom was telling me they worked 90 days without a day off. Finally took a day off after 90 days. So they were the most popular band out in the country.
Did your folks ever sit in
No.
and listen to you play?
No.
They never did.
But they saw me on television.
Yeah.
Because we came on television in 1953, and they had a television set, so they got to see me on television.
So how long did you stay with Tom Owens before you went off and?
I left him in April of '48. I was with him for a little over 2 years, about 2.5 years. Then I started my own.
So how did you go about starting your own band? Did you know of people that would be willing to go with you and play? Or?
Well, I knew of one for sure. Then I knew I'd have to get some more, but that didn't bother me. I borrowed $2,000 from my dad, and Tom was very gracious. He helped me with different names of different ballrooms around the country. So it didn't take long for me to get working. We were working 6 and 7 nights a week.
Yeah. Can you remember the guys that played with you?
Oh, I remember them all.
Originally?
Oh, sure.
What was their names?
Well, there's Bob Moran on drums. Of course, before him, Bob Anderson helped me out for a couple of months, as did Stan Travanchek. They just helped me originally, along with Walt Miller, Curly Meeks, and Shorty Pudel.
And who was after
Shorty Pudel. And then, let's see. And then Bob Anderson and Stan, after they left, they were only with me a couple, 3 months. And then I got Bob Moran and Dick Harvey. And then Dick was with me for about 10 years, and then he left. He got tired of traveling, and Bruno Randall joined the band. But in the meantime, in about 1955, I added Bobby Andrews. Well, actually, it was before that, 1952, because before we went on TV. We went on TV in '53.
Mm-hmm. When you so how many members did you originally start with? How many was in your band?
There were 6 in the band.
Six in your band.
Curly Meeks was with us until '56, and then in '57 I got Jesse going on guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesse, Shorty, let's see now, Bruno Randalls and Bill Owsley were with me when the band folded up in '69 when we lost Ken Feets. In the meantime, I forgot to mention that Rusty Wagner was after Walt Miller. Rusty Wagner, before Rusty Wagner, there was Earl Lanier. He helped me out, and then Rusty Wagner was with me for about 17 years.
Mm-hmm. When you first started, how much could you afford to pay your band members?
I paid him $125 plus the same thing I got with Tom Owens,
Mm-hmm. Now, did you, and they could expect to play how many jobs? Did you call these jobs or gigs?
Jobs.
Where do I get the word gig?
A lot of musicians use that, but I didn't. So anyway, we were working 6 and 7 days a week. Then after we got with Kent Feeds, they were working too much. We were working there like they used to have these dealer award banquets. And then he used to have open houses, and we play those. And so the guys one day got together and says, "We don't like this working 7 days a week, Leo." So I said, "Well, I need you, so let's work 6 days a week." And everybody loved it, including my wife.
Just scheduling all of these jobs had to been a good part-time or...
I did all my own booking.
You did your own scheduling?
But see, after you got started and got on radio and television, people would come to you.
Yeah.
And as your popularity grew and you expanded your territory, and then with Kent Feeds, we went into Nebraska, South Dakota. We actually, when we had tours down through Texas. At one time, we covered 10 states.
Mm-hmm. I want to back up a little bit. Tom Owens, I think I read someplace that Tom Owens' group had the distinction of being the first local group to perform on live TV.
Yeah.
Is that true?
They were on in September, and we were on right after. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The dance halls in Cedar Rapids, did you play RMR and Danceland?
With Tom Owens, I worked Danceland. Yeah. Then the RMR came in about the time I started my band, and I started playing over there. Yeah. It was kind of an unwritten law that you don't play both places, so I played the RMR ballroom, and Tom played the ballroom downtown, which is Danceland.
Okay, you either played one or the other. You didn't jump back and forth between them. Mm-hmm. Was there any other ballrooms in Cedar Rapids at that time? That you
there was one down by the river, but I can't remember.
Down by Ellis?
No, on First Street there. Between actually it would be right on the corner of A and First Street, but I forget what it was, what the ballroom was. Then there was one upstairs, not a ballroom, but there was a place that they used to dance upstairs right across from Danceland, right across the street. Cut.
In driving to all of these different jobs, Leo, what did you use for a vehicle to put all your instruments and all the band members in?
Well, we first started out with a car and trailer. Then we went to a stretch job, and then I just handed you that picture of the bus with the. That's what in 51. Then we went with this bus.
Did you take turns driving your car?
Shorty and Rusty drove the bus. The only two that drove the bus.
Was there? I'm sure there's a lot of times you got home pretty.
Oh yeah.
Late in the evening or early morning hours.
Early morning most of the time. Yeah. Well, for the jumps like to Nebraska and South Dakota, we'd get home at 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning sometimes. But we'd stay over a couple, 3 nights then. We wouldn't just do one job out there.
Okay, but then when you did get home that early in the morning, most of the time you got back up in the afternoon and went to another job.
That's right.
And
that's when we were young and could do it.
This bus here, later on, would you like to show that, Leo?
I bought that in 1951. And Shorty and I went to Tacoma, where I bought it, came home, and then on 10th Street, where they used to service it, Shorty drove it over there, and then so I called him up and said, "No, look, I'll pick you up," because he lived over on the southwest side. "I'll pick you up and I'll drive it over." So I got in the bus. Curly Meeks and I got in the bus. We started over. A car went around me, waving like mad, and I thought, "Hey, they like the bus." And then another car went by, and he rolled down his window and says, "Your bus is on fire." I had left the emergency brake on. So, but we pulled in front of this place, and the fire truck was there immediately because the lady saw the smoke, and she called the fire. And man, they were out there, but we had the fire out before they got there.
Was this new when you bought it, or
no? It was a used one. But it was a good bus in good shape.
Yeah. Did Louise get to go with you?
No.
On dance shop?
She stood home and took care of the kids.
You mentioned how many kids did you have about this time? Approximately at this time that.
Well, and we ended up with 5. Larry's the first one, born in 47, and then Lindy was born in 51. Luann was born in 55. Must have been before that, because I think Lance was born in 61, so 3 years before that would be 58 for Lisa. So it had to be about 54 for Luann, and 51 for Linda, and 57 for Larry.
In these dance jobs, I imagine you played the surf ballroom, the Turp ballroom,
Turp in Austin,
Modders and Decor,
Show Acres in in Sioux City. They
Inwood and Spillville.
Inwood and Spillville, and then we played Sioux Falls. What's the name of that ballroom? Is that the Tromar? Memory escapes me.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Coliseum Ballroom in Davenport, and the ballroom in the Checkerboard Ballroom in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. And then we played the Avalon Ballroom in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Played a lot of ballrooms. In fact, there were very few that we missed.
And after a time, did you start noticing? Did you start recognizing a lot of people in the crowds?
Oh yeah, they got
that
to
were
be good
following
friends.
you around?
Oh, that's really what I miss most about the business. Even King's Ballroom in Norfolk, Nebraska. You know, you go there and they'd come up and request tunes, and then the next time we'd come back, say a couple of months later, I'd remember what tunes they asked for. They'd step in the door and they'd say, "Now for so and so, here's the like say the Prune song or whatever song that was their favorite." So, and up like in you talk about people following us around. We had our good friends Virginia and Ray Schwickerath, and they loved to dance to Heartaches by the Number. So no matter where they followed us to, the minute they'd step in the door, I'd say, this is for them. And then our good friends in Waverly, Bob and Dorothy Brandt, they'd come step in the door, and they used to love to dance to Goodbye Little Darling. So you kind of remember those things. You kind of made it a habit to remember those things because they were good. They were friends, and they weren't just. It wasn't just a business venture anymore. They were real, true friends.
Yes. When they would start following you around the country.
Yeah. They're like family.
Yeah. Did you
and
ever,
to this day, they still are.
Yeah. Did you ever get back home to play the ballroom in Old Wine?
Well, see, we retired in '69. Yeah. Oh, sure. I played there for years. Every other Thursday with Tom Owens Cowboys, we played the Coliseum.
Did you see a lot of your friends that you grew up with?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
How about weather in the wintertime? Did you ever run into any bad weather when spending this much time on the roads?
You don't have enough time for me to put it all in there.
Did you ever run into any bad blizzards?
Yes, we did. I remember one night in particular we were playing Decorah, Modern's Ballroom in Decorah. And when we started out, I didn't think it was a good idea, and I called Leonard. Leonard says, "I don't know. It doesn't look too bad here now," but he said, "I don't like the way it is." But he says, "If you want to come on up," and I said, "Okay, we'll try and see what happens." So as we got near the Decorah, I said, that's the wrong choice." But we went and we were complete. See, the reason that we went is because everything was sold out, and they had over 100 names on the waiting list, and I didn't want to disappoint anybody. Well, of course, when that snow started falling, it really, really got real bad. And we started out, and about 9:30, Leonard came over and said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Give them back their money. I want to go home. I want to get home, So we started back, and in some places, Bruno got out with a shovel, and Bruno and Jess got out and shoveled past so that we could get through. And we got as far as Owine and said that we better stay here because we're not going to make it home to Cedar Rapids. So a couple of hours later, some truckers came in, and I said, "How's the road?" They said, "You can get through now." So we started on and came on home. So, and then I remember one in particular. It was in Sioux City, Nebraska. We had played a fireman's dance there in that, what do you call it, the racing place there? The whatever name it was, I forget.
Arc-Star-Band?
Yeah, Arc-Star-Band. And we packed that place. And, it was big. Man, we had a fireman's dance, and it was really, really packed, And so the chief came over and he said, "Hey, how'd you like to work here on New Year's Eve?" And I said, "I'd love it." He says, "You take the door," and he says, "and we'll take because back then they could sell liquor across the river, not in Iowa, but in Nebraska they couldn't." And I said, "Hey, that should work out real great." So anyway, a week before the dance, the guy calls me up and he says, "Leo, I don't think we're going to be able to have the dance." I said, "Well, according to our newscast," he said, "the snow's going to be out of there." He said, "Yeah, but he said it's cold." And he said, "It's supposed to be 25 to 35 degrees for the next week." And he said, we're not a necessity, and they won't let us have the gas. So I said, "Well, we'll keep in touch." But I kept listening to the radio, and I said, we're not going to be going to. So that night, we were selling albums back then, and I was down in the basement cutting cardboard for my album. So when I had $500 worth of things that you buy for New Year's Eve, and I thought, well, I was going to be stuck with them. But the next year, Frank Stangler over at Swisher said, "Hey, I understand you got some, what do you call it, novelties?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "What do you want for them?" I says, "I'll give them to you for the same price that I got them for." That's a deal, because, they'd gone up in the meantime. So I told him what I paid for, and he took them off my hands, and that was it.
You had mentioned liquor in Sioux City. Did you allow your band members to
Not on the job.
have
No.
a sip once in a while?
No, not on the job. Not while I were working, or not even in the bus.
Of course, this time in Iowa, there was no liquor by the drink.
No, there wasn't.
People brought their own liquor to
Yeah.
the dance with them and mixed their own drinks. And,
Yeah.
Did you ever drink yourself?
No,
Never did.
never had.
Never had a urge to.
No, I was lucky. I had
you
a
were.
dad at the age of 5. Well, first started out with a cigar. He was smoking an Italian cigar, and he said, "Do you want to take a puff?" And being a little kid, I said, "Yeah." Boy, I was sick for a day. That Italian cigar almost killed me. And then a little later on, he said, "Here, do you want some whiskey?" He was drinking some whiskey. And I said, yeah, I'd like to taste it. I tasted it, burned all the way down, and that cured me from drinking and smoking right then and there. So I was lucky in that respect.
Let me ask you first. You were a boss for quite a few years.
22
And
years.
Normally, bosses, sometime or another, they have personnel problems with their employees. Did you ever have many problems with your?
Not a lot. But you're never going to get like the old Navy man who used to say, you give them turkey and they want chicken. You give them chicken and they want turkey.
Yeah.
Good bunch of guys, but as a boss you have to expect that, But I had a nice bunch of guys to work with.
Did you ever have much turnover?
Not really a whole lot. In the 22 years I was in business, I think I had probably, originally with 6, and then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. In 22 years I had about 13 men that went through. And of course Shorty stayed with me from start to finish. And then Bobby Andrews joined me in 51 or 2, and he was with me till I gave the band up. And then Bruno Randles joined me, and he spent about 12 years, 10, 11, 12 years with me. And he was with me when I gave up. And then Jesse Golan was with me about 14 years. Rusty Wagner was with me, he came on after Earl Lanier and stayed until 2 years before. He was with me about 15, 16 years, maybe even 17 years. So you see, I didn't really have a lot of turnover. Bill Owsley was with me after Bob Moran left me, and Bill was with me for about 3-4 years. Then I had Bob Owsley was in there, and he was the one that came on after Bob Moran. After Bob Moran, then it was Bob. Was it Bob Owsley? And then no, not Bob Owsley. Can't even think of Bob. He was a terrific drummer. And then Bill Owsley was the last drummer I had.
Did you do any tours? Did you take the
Down
bus
into
and
Texas.
go someplace and stay for a week or 2 weeks and
Well,
play?
just 1 week at the most. We went down to Texas a couple of times.
And when you did that, did you try to line up more than one job?
Oh yeah, well sure, we lined up jobs on the way.
Before you, okay.
Actually, we went from Austin, Minnesota to Houston, Texas.
How did you ever end up in? Why did you end up in Houston, Texas? Did
Well,
somebody here?
I wanted to
hear
expand.
you?
I wanted to expand the band because one of the Tom Archer was a real good friend of mine, and we were number 3rd country and western band. He says you got to get your reputation out so that people know you in a bigger district. Because Hank Thompson and Pee Wee King play a bigger territory than you do. He says you got the most ballrooms in where you're working, but he says if you could just reach out just a little bit more, he said I think you could go up to number 1. So Tom was a pretty wise old man, so I listened to him, and that's why I took my tours.
Did you ever have the opportunity? Were you ever asked to play a polka mass in all your years?
No, I never was.
Never have. What were? I think we talked about the large ballrooms, and you said you had a lot of wedding dances.
Oh yeah,
You were
an awful lot of them.
my,
Too numerous to talk about.
my brother and his wife was down this weekend, and I mentioned the fact that I was going to be interviewing Leo this weekend. They followed you all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
They were from northern Iowa.
Yeah.
In playing all of these different jobs all over the country in 10 different states, did the ballrooms ever put together a award type of deal?
They had the downbeats ballroom operator poll, and that was how they determined that is the amount of people that you brought through the door. And we were number 3 up to 1956, and then we were number 1 from 1956 to 1960. And then they discontinued the poll. That's what those plaques are that you were looking at earlier.
You traveled an awful lot of miles. Do you have any idea approximately how many
Well,
miles
let's see.
you traveled?
I think we went through. We had GMC motors, and we got about 400,000 on each motor, and we went through at least 3 or 4 motors. I'd have to talk to Rusty. Rusty's the guy who took care of that, and he knew what was going on.
Did you
fabulous memory?
Did you ever have burnout?
Not really. No, I enjoyed what I was
You
doing.
never did. Did any of your band members get burned out?
Yeah, I think they did
working
from-
those
from
that
traveling.
many hours and traveling.
Yeah, from
and-
traveling, I think they did. Yeah. So, they, I had a good wife behind me. She didn't complain. She just said, "What makes you happy makes me happy." So, you can't lose with a wife like that, can
Well,
you?
you had promised her you wouldn't stay overnight when
No,
you first
no,
started.
I promised her I wouldn't go in the music business, but she released me from that promise. Otherwise, I'd never been in the music business.
But for years, you made it a point that you would be home after the dance job.
Oh yeah, we came home. Unless we stayed out, Sure.
Okay, Leo. When did you start getting exposed to the radio and TV personality then?
Well, you want me to start with my band or?
Well, wherever.
Okay, well, and let's start after the war years.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Then 45, I joined Tom Owens Cowboys, and I was on radio on WMT with Tom Owens till 1945, in 1948. Then from 48 to 51, I was on WMT, but I wasn't on steady. It was just like they'd have the All Iowa Fair, and they'd use this for different things, but I wasn't with them steady. Then in 1951, Ken Feeds came along and hired us on radio. And then in 53 we went on TV. And as you mentioned earlier, Tom Owens Cowboys was on in September, and then we came on the next month in October.
Mm-hmm.
And we were there from on TV from 53 to 69. Then December 6th of 1969 is when I folded up the band.
What time was your show on at that time?
I was on at 6:15 on television. On radio, I was on at 5:45 when we started out. Then we moved up to 6:30 later on for Ken Feeds.
Who do you suppose your main audience was at that time? Farmers or just
Well, our
people
ratings-
that followed you? Or?
Our ratings were terrific. They were. We had both town and country, and you couldn't determine. They used to have farm surveys, and our surveys were terrific with the farmers. And also our surveys in town were just as good, but that included what they call the TSA, the total territory. So the ratings were good on anything we did. So, in fact, in television, we were in the top 25 shows. We followed the news, and we went up for our show. Went up from the news, and then Jackie Gleason, his numbers went down after our show. But we were a local operation. They were national. So that's not a fair comparison, because we played in these different ballrooms. We got to make all these friends, and that's why our local ratings stayed up real good.
So how long did you stay in the radio business?
Well, actually, when I was with WMT on radio, I also went to Owine for Kent Feeds. I did a disc jockey show there on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays. I'd drive up on Saturdays and do the show live, and then I'd tape Tuesday and Thursday. Then in about 65, Jim Young said, "Hey, I understand you're working for Kent Feeds, you're not working for WMT." And I said, "No." I said, "That's true." He said, "Well, would you like to come over here and do a disc jockey show from 10 to 11? And so I was on there for a few years, and then Art Rankin got sick. He was their salesman in the territory, and Chuck Butler says, "Leo, how'd you like to cover the territory for me?" I says, "Charlie, I don't have that kind of time." And as I just said, I don't have that kind of time, and he said, "Look, Leo," he says, "Art doesn't have too many accounts." He says, "Would you just mind servicing them?" And I said, and he says, "And I'll pay you well." So I got thinking, well, he says, "You don't have to answer any sales meetings or anything like that. Just on your own time, just service the accounts." Well, so I started doing that. And then there was what the Polka Party was probably the most popular show on radio in those days. And I knew it was popular because when I used to have the band, we'd play all around here, and they'd ask for polkas I never heard of them. And then say, "Well, where did you hear that?" "Well, we heard it on KCRG with Dave Franklin, the Polka Party." So I got to thinking, hey. So I started selling the Sunday mornings, and I liked what I was doing, and I kept selling. And then in 69, WMT dropped the band. Kent Feeds dropped the band, not WMT. They were talking about putting us on a network of 15 stations. And we thought, man, this is going to be really, really great. But in 1969, and we did the dealer award banquets in February and March, and they were talking about putting us on 15 to 25 stations. And then one day Bob Schubert calls me up and said, well, look, all right, what are you doing right now? I said, I'm getting ready to head up to Lamar's in Sioux City. We've got a couple of Kent Feed shows up in that territory. He said, why don't you have Luis put on the coffee pot? And I said, okay. I said, I'm ready to jump in the tub and shave. He said, good, and then I'll be up. So he came up, and my wife poured the coffee and started to walk out. And he said, well, Louise, I want you to hear this too. So I thought, man, we're going to be on 15 to 25 stations. So we sat down. He said, I don't know how to start this. And I said, Bob, we've always leveled with each other. You don't play Mickey Mouse games, neither do I. He said, well, they're going to drop the Leo Greco show. I said, for this summer? No, he said, forever. I said, boy, that is a surprise. 1 month they're talking about 15 to 25 TV stations, and the next month, he said, well, they changed management, and management saw that they were spending all the money with, and they had good reasons, really, because they said in the summertime, the farmers don't watch the TV like they do in the wintertime. And then they said that they're not using television like they do in the summertime, in the wintertime, So there was a couple of other good, and they were good reasons that the big organizations were buying out the small farms, mom and pop farms, which like in Minnesota and Illinois they did, but never happened in Iowa. To this day, I still think the small farmers are still, prevalent over the like in Illinois and Wisconsin, where the big corporations have taken over most of the big farms. But they had good reasons. Well, at first it didn't set too pretty with me. I had nothing against them, but boy, when your salary goes down to half and you got 2 kids in college, you know what I mean? But the good Lord knows what He's doing. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Then I stayed with KCRG for about a year, and then they changed their format to rock, which I'm not, I wasn't interested in selling rock music. And Jerry Brady from WMT called me up. He's a sales manager. And I said, golly, I thought you were calling me to offer me a job. And he kind of laughed. And so then a few days later, he called back and he said, were you kidding about a job? And I said, no, I've already told Chuck Buller, the nicest guy, one of the nicest guys I ever worked with, that I was going to leave. And he said, well, in that case, we said, we will talk to you because we don't believe in going across the river and taking other people's people, And I said, no, that's not the case. So he said, well, let's talk. So we talked, and I started with them in February 29, 1971. The last day of February. It was leap year.
Was that playing or into sales?
That was in sales.
Sales. In the KCRG, you were in sales.
Sales strictly. See, I gave up the band in '69.
Okay.
December 6th, 1969. My last job was at Motter's Ballroom in Decorah.
In Decorah.
And then I went into sales at KCRG for a while, and then I went to WMT. Well, actually, a year later.
Did Modders know at that time that was the
Oh
last
yeah,
time?
yeah. We advertised it. We had a full house. We always used to pack the place up there. Had terrific crowds.
So what was your duties as in sales?
I was a salesman.
But explain it.
I sold advertising spots, for this radio station.
Mm-hmm.
Then in '71, Jerry Brady said, do you ever think about doing a radio show like you used to do, playing records? And I said, well, if you want. And he says, I got an idea. We can do a 7 to 9 show on Saturday night. And he said, would you be interested? And I said, certainly I'd be interested. So we started it out and went from 7 to 9, got that sold out, so we went from 7 to 10. I sold that, and I also sold other advertising during the week. I had quite an account list back in those days. And so then we did that, and then we went to Sunday mornings. Because in basketball season, they used to change and put us up in the afternoon. Then they changed program directors, and the program director said, well, no, I don't want to disturb our format that we have. I'd rather not have it. And I said, well, then you're going to lose that revenue. And he said, well, that's the way it's got to be. So then Jerry Brady was the sales manager then. Well, was a manager. And then I forget Perry Kidder came in. Jerry Brady was the manager, actually, and then Perry Kidder came in. And when Perry came in, he said, when the basketball season came around, he said, well, what do you do during the basketball season? I said, nothing. He said, you mean we lose that revenue? And I said, hey, you want to talk to the guy that's responsible, talk to your program director. And then Perry Kidder said, well, how come? And I said, well, you'll have to talk to your program director because he's the one that dropped it out. And he said, well, he says, what are you doing right now? I said, I'm getting ready to go out in the territory. And he said, can you hang around for a little while? So he called the program director in, and they had about a 15-minute visit, and he called me back in. He says, how would you like to go on Sunday morning? I said, that's fine. I said, you got some great competition, because I said, Sunday morning, Sunday has a really terrific audience. And he said, well, but he plays strictly polkas, and you're going to play a variety, like you did on your show. And I said, that's right. So he said, well, if you don't mind, we'd like to try it. So I said, okay, we'll try it. And so we did. And it worked out good, you know. And Dave Franklin was on that show for years and years and years.
What was the name of the show then?
Polka Party with Dave Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How many accordions did you wear out in your lifetime?
2, 3. The third one I still got. I wore out actually 2 accordions I changed. Then the last one I've still got.
How did it was technology? Did you find that it really improved your quality of playing and ease of playing? The advance in technology and all the electronic gear and everything.
Well, I didn't have an electronic accordion.
You didn't.
I just had a regular accordion from the time I started until the time I ended.
How about your band members? Were they any?
Well,
electronic
Rusty
gear?
went from a slap bass to an electric bass. Yeah, that would be the only thing that would be electrically changed, because the guitar was always had an amplifier for the guitar.
Didn't you have a Czech album?
Yeah.
You put together a Czech album?
I put together a Czech album, and Mildred Drahazal is the one that helped me out with that. She helped me with of course, Shorty being Czech helped out a lot too, and then she taught me how to sing a song, and Rusty caught on real quick. The guy was just a fantastic musician. And we got on dot with that album. I called Lawrence Welk up, and I said, Lawrence, well, where can I send the test tape to? And he said, well, you send it to Randy, and if he likes it, he'll talk to you. So I sent it to him, and he wrote back and said, yeah, I like the idea. So we were on dot for quite a while, and then all at once, people were calling, like my Omaha distributor and Chicago distributor, said, we can't get your albums anymore. So I called the guy at Dot, Randy Woods, at Dot, and I said, Randy, he said, Leo, we wait until we get an order for 5,000 before we press them again. So when we get rid of your 5,000, then we start all over again. I said, well, distributors are asking for them now, but he says, we're not out in all the markets. We got to wait till we're out on all the markets, you know. And I said, well, you know, maybe I should just take they were my regular tapes, and I'm going to go on my own. So I did that, went on my own. Then from albums that graduated into CDs and cassettes, which I now have on.
You mentioned Lawrence Welk. Were you and Lawrence good friends?
Real good friends. Back in '48, when he was here at the Armor Ballroom, he invited me up on the stage, and I got to know him then. And then when they had the ballroom operators conventions, why we'd always get together and have lunch together.
Did you ever have an ambition to become as big as he did when you were young?
Yeah, really, I probably did back in my mind. Well, I did, because of the fact that when I was talking to him one time, he said, hey, there's a place down in San Diego, ballroom down there, that they can't seem to put any people in. And he said, from what I've been hearing about you, he said, from what Tom tells me, he says, you're packing his ballrooms all over. He says, why don't you give it a try? So we went down, my wife and I went down there, and I came back and was talking to the guys, but the guys didn't want to move.
That was the end of that.
That was the end of that. I wasn't going to go down there without, with a new band and stuff, so that was that.
Yeah. I got some names here that'll probably bring back some memories. The Singing Farmer.
Oh yeah, that was Marlon Peterson. You bet. He's back on television back in the old days.
Dad and his boys.
Oh sure, they were on WMT before Tom Owens Cowboys were. Bob Hersham was one of their members. Was a real dear friend of mine. He passed away here a couple of years ago. So.
Dale Donald.
What's that?
Dale Donald.
Dale O'Donnell.
Dale Donald. I think.
That's a new one to me.
George Cervenka.
Oh yeah, George had a big band orchestra with it. He played violin.
Mm-hmm.
Nice guy, real nice guy.
And Don Ruth.
That's Don Roth.
Don Roth.
Yeah,
man.
an accordion player. He had a terrific band, and they went down to, I forget whether it was St. Louis or Kansas City, but they went somewhere down in that territory. He took the whole band down there.
What would you say would have been your peak years when you were really at your prime, making probably the best money that you made?
Well, probably the years from 53 to 60. Then things started changing. After television, things started changing a little bit. See, back in the old days, the ballrooms were the poor man's nightclubs. You could buy a bottle of booze and take it with you, and then you could bring some home. It only cost $3-4. But then liquor by the drink came in, and like Bub Goodwick with Tom Owens Cowboys used to say, that's what's going to ruin the business, is the liquor by the drink. And he was right. And then you'd have to spread out further to get the dance jobs. And then, of course, things started changing. You like your wedding dances, when they used to have them on Mondays, Tuesdays, your fireman dances. Any day of the week that ballrooms didn't take you, you could fill those up 6-7 days a week. You know. Then when things started changing, the kids started moving to town, and then they started having their wedding dances on Friday and Saturday. Well, the dances became less on Monday and Tuesdays around here, so you had to stretch out your territory to fill in the empty holes. So things started changing then in the 60s, really. We were lucky we had TV and radio in the 60s. That's what kept us really together.
There is a ballroom, dance hall ballroom, being built in, they're starting up on First Avenue. What do you think their prospects are for making a go of it in this day and age?
I wouldn't even venture a guess. I know the Ponderosa is doing real well. They have a lot of the local bands that are doing real well there. So, but I wouldn't venture a guess.
Do you and your wife ever find yourself going to a dance just to see?
Not too much anymore. If we go there, we go to visit with friends or something, but
that's what I mean.
Not to dance because our feet don't hold up that well.
So, in along 1988, you started a variety show for WMT.
No, I started that in 1973.
1973.
On radio.
Okay. And then are you still at that?
I'm still on radio here in 2002. I'll get there. Yeah, see, I'm going on my 29th year.
Yeah. What's your goal? You got any goals you want to set?
Not really.
Not really?
I'm just
day by day.
And I let the good Lord guide me, because sometimes I've made decisions and I seem to go away from it. So I just would take them one day at a time. Yeah. And I'm really lucky I've got a good wife to stand behind me.
Were you a friend with Chuck Wooster?
Oh, Chuck was a dear friend of mine. Yeah. I'll tell you, I never met an individual like him. He could take a script and study it for a minute and then throw it away and get on TV and look you right straight in the camera and do better than the script that he had just read. He had just fabulous mind. He's just a fantastic person to work with. He was the greatest personality, as far as radio personality, that I've ever known, really. He was just, when he died, they had his funeral over at Coe Cottage in this Sinclair Auditorium, and that place was packed. And that's the kind of guy that Chuck Wooster was. He had a terrific audience.
Bill Corton?
Oh, he's one of the nicest people you ever wanted to work for. I joined right after he had left, but I got to know him back in the old days when I was with Tom Owens Cowboys, and he's just a gentleman's gentleman. They don't come any finer.
Vance.
You don't mean Vance?
I don't have that.
Let's see. Ken Hasty. Ken Hasty's the one that hired me. And then Lou Van Ostrom. Is that who you're thinking
Van Ostrom,
of? Yeah. Lou was our general manager when I joined WMT. Then after Lou came Ken Hasty. Great guys. Yeah. And then after Ken Hasty, it was Jerry Brady. And after Jerry Brady, it was Larry Edwards. These are all nice guys to work for. And then after Larry Edwards, it was, I believe, Perry Kidder. Yeah. And then, let's see. And then, of course, after Perry Kidder, then it was Frosty Mitchell. And Frosty was there for about 14, 15, 16 years. He owned WMT. Beautiful guy to work with. Terrific person.
Did you know Dean Lanspear?
Oh, Dean and I were good friends. Yeah, you bet.
Did you know him when he was doing the
Man on the Street? You bet. That's where I made the statement that I would never go back in the music business on the Man on the Street thing. And my wife had the tape, but she never held it against me. Isn't that nice of her?
After you retired, What did you do then? Did you go in? Did you start doing volunteer type work, or?
Well, yeah, I got involved with Camp Courageous. Tate Cummins came to me one day and he says, would you mind if I got on the air and talked about Camp Courageous? And he told me what it was all about, a camp for, people with disabilities. And I said, no, that's a great cause. So let me run it by the manager. I ran it by the manager. Incidentally, one of the managers in there too was Rick Sellers. I forgot Rick Sellers was our manager, radio manager. He's the owner now of K Memory here in town. So I don't know how I got by him. I think after Larry, I'm not sure just exactly where he came in there because, like I said, there's quite a few managers that came through. I even forgot Kelly Atherton. Kelly was a manager there too for a few years. And I think maybe I hope I've covered all the managers. And then where was I? What did I just mention?
You were talking about Tate Cummins.
Yeah, Tate Cummins came in and I said, no, that'd be great. Let me run it by management. And Larry Edwards was the manager then, and Larry says, you have my blessings. So that's how it all started.
Yeah. Didn't Tate have a physically and mentally
Yes,
challenged
yeah,
boy?
Charlie Cummins is alive and doing well, getting along real good. And then when Tate died, then Dottie kind of stepped in to help out and on the radio show. And then she said, I'm going to introduce you to a gentleman that you're going to love because I always use it. I hear you use the word integrity a lot, and you're going to love this guy. So she introduced me to Charlie Becker, and then Charlie Becker came on after Dottie left. And she's right. He's one of the nicest people you ever want to meet. I call him a saint, St. Charles. And then I got involved with the Shriners Transportation Fund. Sitting in the booth one day, and a couple of friends of mine, Jerry Carson and his cousin Bob, were talking about these pop can things. And I didn't know a thing about it. And I said, well, explain to me what happens. I said, well, they take and they sell these, and they use the money strictly for transportation. The Shriners take and pay for everything else, all the operations and all of the wheelchairs and the things that they use for the people that need them, They pay for all of that. All this takes care of is the transportation, the food, and the lodgings. And so I got to talking to a couple of friends of mine, said, do you know anything about it? And they said, well, sure. Thanks to them, they helped our grandkids out. Wouldn't have been for them, but it cost them anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000, or $150,000. You can get that much involved when you start putting artificial limbs and artificial arms and all the operations and everything that you have to have. And so that's how I got involved. So I started collecting the pop can tabs for the Shriners. In fact, just yesterday Phil picked up about 30 buckets to head down in the basement. I went from 24 to 30 buckets in 1 week.
Introduce your better half to us.
This is my lovely wife of 56 years. This is Louise. Honey, I think he wants to ask you a couple questions.
Yeah, Louise, tell us the truth. We heard Leo's side. Did ever in your married life wish that he'd change his occupation after playing all them dance
No, not really, because it made him so happy.
Yeah. And he was making good money, and he did try to get home as often as he could. How many children did you, I think I asked Leo, how many children did you have?
We have 5.
5 children? Yeah. And who is this?
These are our grandchildren. This was our family we had taken just before Christmas. We have, our oldest boy is Larry, and he has Ben is 23, and Andy is 21. And then our daughter Linda lives in Denver, and she doesn't have children. And she's married to Michael Sanders. And then Luann lives in Minnesota, and she has, at Wilmer, Minnesota, and she has Daniel and Katie, are 12 and 10. Mm-hmm. And then we have Lisa lives here in Cedar Rapids, and she's married to Jeff Raymond. And they have, Alex is 8, and little Leo, baby Leo I call him, is 3.5, will be 4 in March. And then our youngest son Lance has married Lisa, and another Lisa, and they have Callista, who is 4, and little Gabriel is 1 year.
I wanted to ask you, this home you're living in, how old is this?
This was built 100 years ago.
100 years ago, in the early 1900s.
1901.
And how long have you lived here in this house?
It'll be 102 years. We've lived here 50 years. I'll let my wife do some of the talking. Go ahead,
It's
honey.
a
you
long
can-
time, 50 years.
So what did you do? Just keep house? Not just keep
Yeah,
house.
that's all I
Besides
did.
your main job was keeping house
Yes,
and,
I
and taking
was
care of the
stay-at-home
children.
mother. Uh-huh.
And she raised the 5 children. Then after she got them raised, I came home and she had to raise number 6. And he was more trouble than the first 5 put together. You're supposed to say no, or I wasn't.
Did you two of you ever get to do any traveling together? Or,
Quite a bit of travel.
Did you?
About 20 years, we hosted tours.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
For WMT, we've been all over.
Yes.
We went to Hawaii 5 times, been to Germany, Alaska, Switzerland, and just all over the country. Just East Coast, West Coast, you name it, we've been there. And it's been fun. Then, of course, we go to our ship's reunions that we have in different locations, like Florida, Annapolis. This year we're going to New Orleans, and we've been to San Diego. In fact, we were aboard, what was the name of the boat in Riverside, California? Queen Mary.
Oh, yes.
We had a reunion aboard the Queen Mary. So, and there's so many, I just keep forgetting the towns, you know.
That's great. That is really great that you get to see some of the world after working so hard all of your
Yes,
life.
we did. Hmm. So now our main traveling is that we go to Denver, a time or 2 a year, and we go up to Wilmer, and then our ship's reunion. So
Do you have any grandfatherly advice to pass on to your grandchildren?
just be good to your grandchildren, and they'll be good to you. And remember this, what my mother-in-law tell me. She enjoyed her grandkids better than she did her children, because when she got sick of them, she could send them home. You see?
But we enjoy them.
We enjoy them. They're enough for the humor, Leo. Okay, honey, I'll...
Leo, I don't mean to be jumping around here, but you keep coming up with this neat photographs and mementos. What is this your original band?
No, this is actually Bruno joined me when I was 10 years into the business, and Jesse joined me when I was about 7 years into the
Can you
business.
point to these gentlemen as
Sure.
you talk about them?
This is Jesse Goen. Then Rusty Wagner joined me 3 years after I started. Then Bruno joined me about 10 years after I started. Bob Moran was one of the originals, and he joined me after 3 years. And of course, he was one of the originals. He was with me from the start to the finish. And when I ended the band, Shorty, Bobby, Bruno, and Jess were with me. And Bob and Rusty had left the band.
Very nice picture. Leo, these are some of the many trophies and awards you've seen throughout your life. Is there any of them that had more meaning than others?
Well, actually, I'm proud of all of them, but it took a band to get some of those awards you see, like the Downbeat Awards, and then I got Kent Feet Awards, and of course, Frosty Mitchell named an award after me and called it the Leo. And I won't tell you what the LEO stands for because they're very complimentary. But anyway, that's the center one with the front of a radio, the tan one there in the middle. And of course, in the center, you see a picture of the good Lord.
Yeah, that's a friend of yours, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the center of my life and our family's life. And of course, the microphone was one of the being the top salesman at WMT many years ago when I was in sales, and all different awards. And of course, that one with the dollars in it, Frosty Mitchell gave that to us when we retired. Isn't that nice?
Yes, it is.
They were $100 bills, and I put some false money in there.
Did the quantity of bills there have any significance, or?
Not anymore. They just represent the real ones that I spent it were in there. But that's it. There are a lot of great awards, and I want to thank a lot of people for, of course, giving those to us. You know, they're beautiful.
Leo, if you had anything, if you had your life to live over again, would you have done anything different, or wished you would have done anything different? Oh, I'm sorry. Leo, if you had your life to live over again, would you have done anything different, or was there anything you wished you would have done and you weren't able to accomplish?
Not really.
Yeah.
You know, we go back a lot of times, what if? But I'm a firm believer that, you know, like I told you earlier in the interview, there's a couple of times that I thought I was making a decision, and that the good Lord says, that's not the direction you should be going. So I listened with my heart and my wife, and it's been great. You know, 80 years old, I didn't think I'd live to be this old. So it's been a beautiful life, with a beautiful wife and a beautiful family that we just love.
What piece did you play at the end of your dance jobs that you closed the evening with?
Oh, it was South. We ended up with South. And then on the last number, actually, boy, it's been years. We're going back to 39 now. I even forget what we ended with. But anyway, South was the ones we always started out with anyway. And we didn't do Good Night Ladies. It was one of those tunes, you know, not Show Me the Way to Go Home. I really can't tell you what it was.
You were often asked to play the Little Red Wagon.
Yes, and that's why you have the accordion on my back.
That is right.
I'm going to warn you, I haven't played this in a long time. And I mean a long, long time.
That is
So
quite all right.
you want to hear a little bit of
You
it?
just play as much as you can. You want to sing?
You sure you want me to sing? Okay, it goes like this. Won't you ride in my little red wagon? I would love to pull you down the street. I bet all of the kids will be jealous when they see my playmate so sweet. Now hold tight till we come to the hilltop. We'll coast down that hill, you and me. Now will you ride in my little red wagon? For you are my sweetheart to be. Hey! I deserve that. I haven't played that in years.
Very good, Leo. Leo, unless you have something else to add, the Cedar Rapids History Center, the Linn County Historical Society, would like to thank you very much for sharing your memories with us.
It's been my pleasure, and I want to thank you folks.
Thank you.
It's been always a pleasure to be around Alan. He's just a beautiful
Oh,
person.
thank you, Leo.
Take care now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's only one thing on the hotel that we stayed in down